Hello everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to today's video where I thought we would do something a little bit different and read some Japanese tweets. A hashtag that I thought was rather interesting actually appeared in my suggestions lately, and it reads as follows: 好きなゲームをつまらなさそうに紹介する, or introduce a game that you like so that it appears boring. And I thought it'd be funny seeing what Japanese people have to say in this regard, introducing games that they enjoy in a way that might not be the most interesting. And as you can see, we are starting off here with some Kirby. And it reads as follows: a guy who looks like a pink ball just goes around with the fairy and collects crystals. It's probably not too far off, really, from what Kirby 64 is really like. It wasn't the most story-driven game, but let's see what else we have. Here we have Super Mario Odyssey, where a mustache man throws his hat around. Would you play the game if Nintendo had advertised it that way? I probably still would have. How can you go wrong with Mario, especially when he's throwing things all over the place? Here's one for Metal Gear Solid on the original PlayStation. On an isolated island, an old man plays hide and seek in the way so that he won't be found. In boss battles, sometimes you have to do things like using a second controller, and on your first play, there will be times when you don't understand things. And that's true. Metal Gear Solid has that time when you have to, not necessarily use a second controller, but I think at least take the controller from slot 1 and plug it in the slot 2 so that you can be the boss. That's actually really cool. And I used to love, games just having, more kind of outside the box things like that. As games have, gone on, you definitely see a lot less of that innovation. Probably because it's a lot harder to do now, especially with, wireless controllers and such, but that's a good one. I like that one. Here we have The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which actually has quite a different art compared to what we got in the West, where it was pretty much just, a gold box with the name. There's actually, some style to the Japanese cover, and K says, a game where you sleep for 7 years straight, which, that's a pretty boring way to describe what is probably one of the best games of all time, I have to admit. Someone probably, after hearing that, would not want to play The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Here we have The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, where the same 3 days are repeated over and 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 over again. I probably wouldn't play that game either if that was how someone described it to me, but they're not exactly wrong, if I'm being honest. Here's a strange one. It's a game called Giftopia, or I think it was going to be called Giftopia in, the West before it was dropped by Nintendo. But basically, this is what the game is about. A person who oversleeps for their coming-of-age ceremony and is then arrested by the police. I think it was made by the same people who made Chibi Robo. Actually, it's a weird game if you've ever seen it. It's super bizarre. Maybe I'll have to play it someday just because, it's strange. Here's a game that I played on the PlayStation 3 called Atelier Rorona. The Atelier games, I started with Atelier Iris on the PlayStation 2, actually. So we're in my room. I can actually show some things that aren't normally in my game room. And this one was really interesting. I really enjoyed the PlayStation 2 ones. The PlayStation 3 ones apparently go back to how they were on the original PlayStation, where they're much more just about, gathering and crafting items. And that's pretty much what this description has to say. Earnestly gather items, gather things, create things from the things that you've gathered, and then go gathering again, which is pretty much what the Atelier games are these days. And there's a lot of them. Like, since the PlayStation 2 ones, there's PlayStation 3 ones, PS4 ones, and they just come out so frequently these days. Anyone who's played them will know. If you've never played any of them, you probably have no idea what this one was about, so let's move on. We have Puyo Puyon for the Dreamcast. I actually did not know that there was a Dreamcast Puyo Puyo game. There is just so much, like on the Saturn and Dreamcast, that we never got in the West, where the PlayStation was just dominating everything. But they say, connect the same color, and they disappear. That's pretty much what you expect from Puyo Puyo, I suppose. Definitely something I played mostly on the Switch, was when I really got into it with, like, Puyo Puyo Tetris. I hadn't really played too much of it before then. Tetris was always my go-to puzzle game. Here we have Splatoon. You become unable to trust anyone. That's deep. Splatoon, definitely one of Nintendo's most, more popular series lately. Definitely captures the feeling of the first-person shooter genre well, which Nintendo hadn't done in quite a while. And is that true? Sounds about right to me. Here we have Professor Layton and the Unwound Future if you're in the West, or the Lost Future if you're in Europe, or the Last Time Travel if you're in Japan. Why they did that with the name, I have no idea, but what they have to say is, if you don't solve puzzles, you cannot progress through the scenario. And that's true, and I guess, that is a pretty boring way of describing it. I probably wouldn't play, the Layton games if that's all they had to say about them, but they are just such fantastic games, such great music, such great stories. Highly recommend them if you have not checked them out. Here we have Animal Crossing New Leaf, and You think you're going to become the leader of the village, but instead you run around doing errands. Animal Crossing never goes as you're expecting it to. It's always, you gotta do something to pay off something, and I'm assuming the new one will probably be the same way. Not too much longer until that, by the way, but that, it's a pretty good description for Animal Crossing, I think. Here we have the entire Dreamcast console, so like not even like a game for the console, but literally the entire machine itself, and they say a star that there was originally high hopes for, but in its final days was mainly a machine for girl games for men. And it's crazy to think about the life that the Dreamcast had in Japan compared to the rest of the world, where it just kept going, but a lot of that really was probably because of the games that were released for it, many of them being, dating sims and other games, including females that would be tended more towards the male audience. Overall, though, the Dreamcast was such a cool console, and it's such a shame that that was where Sega, had to drop out of the console race, but after, the not too exciting things that were the Sega Saturn and all the, the add-ons that they had for the Genesis, it was, I guess, just a matter of time. But it's so cool, just looking at the Dreamcast library, especially if you start diving into the Japan stuff, but you will find some weird things there, that's for sure. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a game where, in a ridiculously large world, you collect 900 pieces of poo. I wouldn't play that game. That'd be awesome, describing that, to someone, and then they're gonna be like, I want to play that, and he's like, oh, it's a Zelda game, and then seeing how they react after that, if they'd still want to play it, that'd be really interesting, actually. We have Doraemon for the Famicom, a children's cartoon in Japan, which I did watch when I was doing my homestay there. It's one of the sons that I stayed with really liked Doraemon. And apparently, in this game, you can reach the ending in 40 seconds. I would actually love to know exactly how that works. Sounds like some kind of speedrunner strat. But there you go. If you're looking for a game that you might even be able to beat in less than a minute, this is potentially one for you. Here we have Doki Doki Literature Club described as just Monica, and in the screenshot it's, welcome to the Literature Club. Run! Minecraft is a game where you dig up rocks all day long, and after hearing that, most people probably won't want to play it. They're leaving out the part where then, after spending a whole day digging up the rocks, you then spend the whole day building stuff with them, and then you go back to digging and then back to building them again. So they're leaving out a little bit of the description there, but again, not too far off from, I guess, the reality of Minecraft. And then there's also the whole, surviving the elements thing. But I think people mainly like the building part more than they like the excavating part. I don't know. How do you feel about Minecraft? In Star Fox, you control a fox who protects a frog and bird. And I mean, that's not wrong. Like, Fox could be doing all this himself. What are these other guys even there for? They just, fail, and then causes you to fail as well. Here we have Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. Lots of Zelda ones, but I mean, Zelda ones are great. Actually known as Triforce of the Gods in Japan. And they have to say that when they were 5 years old, they played it, but without any kind of guide, they got stuck and gave up. But despite that, they cannot say anything other than that it is a perfect game. And A Link to the Past really is fantastic. It's just so good. It's no wonder that it had a sequel on the 3DS, and I agree. Awesome game. Here we have Super Smash Bros. Special, also known as Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, of course, outside of Japan, and they say, pick the character that you like, damage your enemies, once they've accumulated enough damage, send them flying off the screen to win. That's not entirely boring. I'd be very intrigued if I heard that without, having prior knowledge of what Smash Bros. Was. That sounds like a lot of fun, and I think that, just that inherently, that fighting style is what makes Smash Bros. So great. It'd be such a different game if you had a health bar instead. But it's just so satisfying seeing your opponent fly into oblivion. Here we have Pokemon Gold and Silver, where your mother makes free use of your savings, which is true, but I think you can turn that off. Although, of course, as a kid, when many people back in the day played this for the first time, they were younger, they weren't able to read so well, so I think everyone just, started giving all their savings to their mom, and she would just spend it on all these things you don't need, while at the same time, you're grasping at every Pokedollar that you can, of course, known as yen. That's the currency that the Pokemon games use in Japan, because you want to get Pokeballs and things that you actually need, not some doll that's just going to sit on your shelf. So that one's true though, but I probably wouldn't play it if I heard that description. With that though, I think that we're going to end this video off here. I hope that you enjoyed. I know this was a little bit different. Please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Also feel free to, take part in this yourself down in the comments. How would you describe games that you like in a boring way. And if you enjoyed this, perhaps we'll do something similar to it again in the future if I see any other trends going on that I think would be fun to talk about. So with that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and hope to see you next time for something different. So thanks, and see you later.